Hey y'all, so no new full-length episode of Southern Gothic just yet. July is just lagging on, right? But I do have another mini to tide you over until next week when we do. And it's actually a spin-off from a recent show that we did back in June, where we explored the haunted history of the Hammock House out in Beaufort, North Carolina. This one-time inn was purportedly the headquarters of the pirate Blackbeard, and it's now believed to be home to a handful of spirits from as far back as the colonial era. Well, you might remember one of these spirits, a naval officer who was murdered and then taken to the nearby cemetery and buried in a truly unique way. Quote, standing in salute to His Majesty King George III. So while Brienne was doing the research and we were doing the final draft, I fell in love with this cemetery, and now I can't wait to visit it one day, albeit it's probably not going to be during the summer because it just looks like one of the most humid places on earth. But it's known as the Old Burying Ground, and it's been a cemetery for over 300 years, officially deeded to the town of Beaufort in 1731. And I can only imagine that when you step through those iron gates, it probably feels like time travel because the graves aren't really laid out in any specific order, and there's little dirt paths that meander through this thick cover of old live oak trees. Now, nothing in the cemetery is really standardized in any way, partially due to the fact that it was used for so many years by so many different generations of locals, and partially because stone markers would have had to have been brought into Beaufort on ships. So some of those early graves were marked by a number of different things like bricks, shells, or in the case of our naval lieutenant from the Hammock House, just a wooden sign. Eerily, though, that British officer is far from the most unique burial here at Beaufort's Old Burying Grounds. There's another that folks come to specifically visit and pay their respects by leaving everything from toys like stuffed animals and dolls to plastic flowers and jewelry. It's a grave where a young girl was buried about 3 centuries ago under a marker that states simply, "Little girl buried in Rum Keg." Legend says that during the colonial era, a young couple immigrated here to Beaufort with their infant daughter. Immediately, the father took advantage of what the new colonies had to offer, and in no time at all, he began to prosper as a merchant captain, traveling up and down the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. With this newfound wealth, he built a beautiful house on the waterfront for his family. But no matter how wonderful their lives now seemed, his wife was homesick for England. Frequently, she'd tell her daughter about the beauty of her ancestral land, as well as stories about the family that they had left behind to come here to the colonies. So when the girl grew older, she longed to visit this faraway place that her mother had described and began to beg her parents to take her there. But this journey was an arduous one, and certainly no place for children. So it took years of pleading with her father before he finally gave in to her wishes. Knowing full well the dangers of the long sea voyage, the man's wife made him make a simple promise to her that no matter what happened, he would bring their daughter back home to her. So the man agreed. They then said their tear-filled goodbyes and boarded a ship for England. The pair had an incredible trip, visiting places that up until now the young girl had only dreamed of, and meeting family members who she never knew but had loved her since she was born. Unfortunately, on their journey back, tragedy struck. While at sea, the young girl fell ill and died. The custom at the time would dictate that the crew bury her at sea, but the father had made a promise to his wife, a guarantee that he would bring their beloved child home to her, no matter what, and he was not about to break this promise. So he did what he had to do and purchased a barrel of rum from the captain of the ship, the only thing that they had capable of preserving his daughter's body. And he lovingly sealed her inside so that he could bring her home to his wife, and together they could lay the girl to rest. Of course, when the ship arrived, the mother was overcome with grief. But the couple was forced to make a difficult decision. So not wanting to disturb their daughter's eternal rest or worsen the condition of her remains, they made arrangements for the girl to be buried in the Beaufort burying grounds with a keg of rum as her casket. It's there that she remains to this very day. An archaeological study done at the old burial grounds has revealed that this story is quite likely true, although who the young girl is, we don't know. But this scientific evidence wasn't really necessary for many of the folks who have visited the old burying grounds at night. It's said that the apparition of the young girl can often be seen through the old wrought iron fence in the dark of night, her spirit joyfully playing underneath the beautiful but eerie canopy of live oak trees, running between the graves. And in the morning, it's said that some of the toys left in tribute on the girl's grave are found sitting atop other tombstones as if they'd been played with by a child and left strewn about when it was time for rest. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you've been listening to Southern Gothic.
Southern Gothic is an independently produced podcast created by siblings Brianne and Brandon Schexnayder with the support of listeners like you. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to receive even more content, including ad-free episodes, head over to our Patreon page today. The link is in the show notes.
Lucky Little Shacks.